Hold on, before I start, let me get this wheel spinning. And go. So recently I came across this gorgeous pottery video and it was so calming and satisfying that I felt inspired to create my own coffee mugs. Now, I'll be honest, I know absolutely nothing about pottery, but I thought I know a little bit of Blender. So let's try pottery in Blender. So here we go, I've got this clay on the wheel, spinning. Let's start shaping this clay. Let me try to make this nice and flat. A little bit more, I guess. Yeah. Still wobbles a bit, so let's get that sorted first. Yep, that's more like it. And now the height. I want this to be somewhat of this height. Maybe a little bit more. Yeah, something like that. Still wobbles a bit. Let's get that sorted. Yeah, that's more like it. And off goes the wheel. And now comes the best part, putting it all together. Here comes the handle and in it goes in the kiln. Yeah. And look at that. I hope you guys enjoyed the intro, and now we come to the actual part of the video, and that's texturing these beautiful coffee mugs in Blender. Alright, let's get started. Let's start with the simple one. Add a material. Principal VSDF should be fine. Add a ambient occlusion node and plug the color in the color socket. Set this to inside, the samples to 128 and the distance to 0.3. You'll see a slight dark gradient ring on the top. Now let's add color. I'm using this blue color, but feel free to add any color you like. I'm gonna tone down the roughness a little bit on the principal BSDF. Now duplicate the principal BSDF and add a gradient texture. Ctrl+T for mapping coordinates. Of course, I'm using node wrangler for this. Set this to object and plug the color in the base color. Now let's combine these two shaders by adding a mix shader node. Now set the gradient texture to spherical and map it so that it makes a white band in the middle, just like this. Yeah, that's more like it. And that's it. You can adjust the factor here to decide which texture you want to be more prominent. And also you can add a color ramp here to fine tune the band or add a different color to it. Alright, moving on to the next one. Let's go with the principal BSDF, add a noise texture and the mapping coordinates. Set it to object and add a color ramp here. I'm going to turn down the scale here to something like this and bring up the black values a bit, like this. Now add a mix color node and plug a ambient occlusion node in the second color here. Set this to inside, only local, and samples to 128. Add any color you like here. I'm using this green color. Set the distance to 0.3. And that's it. You can also plug the mix color node to roughness to get some variations and play with the color ramp to make it more bright or faded. Alright, moving on. Same goes for this one as well. We're using the principal BSDF. Add a gradient texture and the mapping coordinates. Set this to object and add a color ramp in between. Now I'm going to make a nice light to dark gradient here using these two colors and orient them in such a way that the dark color forms a nice ring on the top part, just like this. Adjust the amount of color you want using the color ramp node. You can also set this to ease for more smoother gradient. Alright, now let's add a Voronoi texture, add the mapping coordinates and set them to object, increase the scale and details to something like this, and add a color ramp. Bring the black and white values closer to get this kind of contrast, and now increase the roughness to get this sharp speckled look. Now duplicate the principal BSDF and add the darker shade of your gradient in the base color. Add a mix shader node and plug both of these principal BSDF in the top and bottom socket and plug the Voronoi texture in the factor. And that's it. And now for the last one. I'm gonna use the same setup we used earlier, a principal BSDF with noise texture, with color ramp and a ambient occlusion node combined together in a mix color node. The only difference here is I'm using two different colors for the noise texture and the ambient occlusion. I'm using a blue color for the noise texture and a faded orange for the ambient occlusion. Feel free to use any color you want. It's the same process, super straightforward and easy. And that's a wrap, guys. As you can see, the setup is simple and most of the nodes are being reused throughout. I hope you guys enjoyed this kind of content. It took me over 3 days to render this scene out on my machine. And if you're a bit curious about how I created this bubbly aerated material, click right here. See you there.